My roommates and I had only just moved into this apartment. It wasn't perfect, but it was affordable, close to campus, and we liked the quiet neighborhood. At least, we thought it was quiet. It started late one night when I was sitting on my bed, scrolling on my phone. I heard this faint tapping sound, almost rhythmic, like someone lightly knocking on wood. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, but when I opened my window, the street was completely still. I brushed it off as my imagination. The next night, the tapping started again, only louder this time. I pressed my ear to the wall and realized it was coming from the apartment next door. What was odd was that the unit had been vacant for months. Our landlord even mentioned it when we signed the lease. I told my roommates, but they laughed it off, saying it was probably just pipes or the wind. That night, though, the noises got worse. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of something heavy scraping against the floor. It was this awful dragging sound, like furniture being moved, or something worse. Unable to ignore it, I texted my roommate, Mia, who was also awake. We both went to the living room to listen. The dragging sound had stopped, but now we could hear faint whispers. They were muffled, like someone was having a low, hurried conversation just on the other side of the wall. I don't know why, but Mia and I decided to knock on the wall. A second later, we heard 3 loud knocks in response. I froze. Mia grabbed my arm. "We need to call the landlord," she whispered, her voice shaking. The landlord said he'd come first thing in the morning to check, but that didn't make me feel better. We stayed up together, keeping all the lights on. Around 2 a.m., the noises stopped completely. Not a single sound came from next door. The next morning, the landlord arrived and opened the door to the vacant apartment. We stood behind him, too scared to go in. The place was empty, but something was off. There were deep scratches on the hardwood floor, leading from the living room toward the front door. On the walls, we noticed faint smudges, like dirty handprints. But there was no explanation for how they got there. The landlord assured us the unit was locked every night and said he'd have it inspected, but I could tell he was spooked. We never found out what or who was in that apartment, but every now and then, when it's late and the building is quiet, I still hear the faint sound of tapping coming from the other side of the wall.